still love that. I will never get tired of it.
I know. We're both like in the green screen, if you will, in the back, like just bouncing to ourselves.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Jen, how are you?
I am lovely. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, likewise. And we have our special guest Peaches in the background today, our marketing director.
That's right. One of our mascots for this season, and always going forward. Pages and Lines. Lines graces us with her presence.
Yes, she does.
So, folks, if you're here, give us a shout. Drop something in the comments. We love to know who is live with us. Yeah. And if you're not here live, we're hoping you're going to catch the replay. So I'm Allie. I'm a award-winning author and a book coach and developmental editor, as well as a writing and publishing consultant. But we are going to talk about marketing today. And my co-host, my fabulous twin, my sister from another mister, Jenn. Jenn, tell us about your world.
Yeah, I am also an award-winning author. I am the most recent author of this new glorious book baby that came out on February 17th. She's finally here for purchase for anybody who is interested.
She's delightful. Look, she's already getting Post-it noted.
I know. I love seeing a book when there's like notes and things sticking out of it. How do you feel about actually writing physically in the book itself? I see that you have Post-it notes. Is that to prevent writing directly in it?
Gosh, it kind of depends. Like, I don't have any beef with like writing right into a book. I think yours, though, this one in particular, I was like, I don't know. It's so lovely with the colored edges and the quotes in between. It's just like so beautifully designed that I almost felt a little bit guilty about writing right into it.
I kind of like that you're saying that. Oh, I like providing a little guilt and shame.
Hey, Christy, nice to have you with us here.
Always.
So Jenn is not only the author of this fabulous book, but she's the founder and owner of Publish Your Purpose.
I got distracted. Yes.
Hybrid publishing company. And Jenn and I are now in our third year of doing Unscripted with Allie and Jenn, where we're pulling back the curtain on writing and publishing and giving you the dirt and the dish. And so this season is season 3, but we're doing something a little bit different. And we're tethering everything that we do this season to Jenn's new book, Promote Your Purpose. Because the one thing that Jenn and I both know to be true is that authors hate to market their book, which is very sad and unfortunate, because the only way that you're going to get anybody to know about it and buy it, or to get your book to serve as a funnel back to your business, is to actually promote it and let people know that it exists. So all this year, we're working through Jenn's new book, chapter by chapter, and coming to you live every month with additional tips, tricks, insights, wisdom from each of our road here in publishing, and pulling in aspects of the book, and also working through the complimentary workbook that goes with Promote Your Purpose, which is available to all of you for free. So if you go to unscriptedforauthors.com.
Please hold. There we are. We have a website. Yes.
You will have not only the inside scoop on when all of these episodes are happening throughout the year, but also what we're focusing on, what chapter of the book they belong with, and the chance to sign up to get the downloaded version of the workbook that goes along with Jenn's book for free. But the best part is that you don't even need the book in order for all of this to make a difference in your promotional life.
Yeah, just our commentary alone, I feel like is a value add. So this is not a marketing gimmick on our side to say like you have to go buy my book, your book, any book, etc. You can literally just work with us in real time throughout 2026 and get to the heart of what you are trying to do as an author. Because as you said, Allie, like no one, I don't know that there's really any author that just loves marketing and promoting their book. Even people who are natural marketers and promoters, I feel like there's just no one who's like really screaming from the rooftops like, I love doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's because marketing is so closely related to sales, and sales makes a lot of people really uncomfortable.
It does. And we will, I don't know what month it is because I think it's chapter 7. So it'd be July. We'll talk about sales as a service. So that way it kind of helps kind of reframe like thinking about marketing from a sales standpoint, because it doesn't
At the same time, though, this is also a really good episode to pair with that one, even though that one's still a couple of months out, because today is all about your mindset and managing your mind over all of this, right? Because if we continue to have the wrong attitude or the wrong perspective around promoting, we're never going to do it, right?
Yeah, and it's not easy.
It's not, but
it doesn't have to be hard either.
Yeah, who is it that says like, I'm going to totally ruin this quote.
Welcome to the club,
right? But like the quote that's about like, whether you believe you can or you can't, it's right.
Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
I'm totally like, it was there and then it left altogether. But like, you have to have the right perspective going in, or you're already kind of like putting yourself behind.
Yeah, you're at a disadvantage out of the gate, unfortunately. Yeah. So yeah, mindset I think is really, it's one of those things that, you know, and I know that we both kind of write about mindset in our collective books about writing and publishing. So, and I don't have do you have your book as a visual?
Oh,
somewhere nearby? Yes.
Yeah. It's coming. It's coming.
There she comes. Okay.
She's gorgeous. Yeah. Yes.
She still makes magic.
Magic. Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
hey, Erica. Hey, girl. Hey. Okay. So we want to dive in today on the mindset around marketing your book. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing it way too much and we want to help you all out. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I highlighted in this reading for this month comes right out of the first page of chapter 3. And it's interesting, Jenn, because you were just talking about sales coming up in a few more months. And I was saying how marketing and sales are related. And you say on page 37, promoting your book isn't just about sales. It's about amplifying your message, building meaningful connections, and expanding your influence. Many authors feel daunted, uncomfortable, or even inauthentic when thinking about marketing. And I'm going to skip down to the bottom of that paragraph. These are common fears that can paralyze even the most confident authors. And that's why your mindset is one of the most crucial tools in your marketing strategy.
Who wrote that?
The brilliant person with me right now. So when we think about that mindset, I want to go on to page 39. And this I think is like the most important piece of this entire chapter, in all honesty. A simple mindset shift from pitching to inviting changes everything. Okay. It aligns your values with your actions and helps you show up with more ease, confidence, and sincerity. So really what we're talking about here is thinking of marketing as an invitation rather than self-promotion. Mm-hmm. You're not demanding attention, you're opening a door. Mm-hmm. I think that makes such a huge difference. I think part of the reason that authors who are still kind of having a hard time with imposter syndrome or, owning their brilliance, owning their expertise, right, is this idea of like talking about their book is talking about themselves, and talking about ourselves is often uncomfortable or icky, or we feel like it's egotistical or selfish, or like so much crap happening between our ears around like, what does it mean and how am I perceived if I talk about my book, right? But you're really inviting people in to what you offer, what you think, what you believe, what way you can transform, right, your reader through whatever it is that you've written about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because I think that, I was actually just on someone's LinkedIn Live yesterday, and we were talking about kind of like purpose and, and we're thinking about like that in like self-promotion. Like, I don't think that anyone appreciates people who are self-promotional. And it's not to say that there's not a balance of being self-promotional, but still from a place of service, but versus the person who you meet at a networking event and all they do is just shove their business card in your face. Like, nobody likes that. Nobody likes an author where it's like, go buy my book, go buy my book, go buy my book. And I think most people don't like to do that. Like, I think it's a small percentage of people who do have that bravado, if you will, to kind of like really be in your face and aggressively like, yeah, go buy my book. Whereas if we can think about how our book really is of service to someone and invite them into our community, into our world, into the pages of our book, it feels so much better to just be able to say like, hey, you have a problem. I know how to solve it. Here's my book. If you want to grab it, go for it. If not, like even like our show, all of it's an invitation. There's nothing here. We're not pitching anything on the show. Never have and never will. Like that is just not who either of us are. But yet there are other book shows out there where it is very pitchy and like that works for them. And so it's kind of like finding your comfort zone, I think, of like where you land on that scale of pitchy versus inviting, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think that at one point I was trying to figure out where to find more of my audience on LinkedIn. So I attempted to be a part of LinkedIn groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say, I don't feel like LinkedIn groups have quite figured it out yet.
Agreed.
But I was in some groups for a while, and there was an authors one. I don't even remember what exactly it was called, but it was for authors. And it was unfortunate because every single post, like 99% of those posts within that LinkedIn group was like title of the book, description of the book, link to go and buy the book.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
None of them made me want to go and buy the book.
Mm-mm.
Not because the titles were necessarily bad or the descriptions were necessarily bad, but like I didn't feel connected to the author. I didn't feel like I understood how that book was going to do me a service. Instead of any of those books standing out as being helpful or transformative or inspiring or whatever it was, instead it read like that. Those groups read like reading a book catalog,
mm-hmm.
And trying to find maybe the one that just happened to have the best title and best description that maybe it stopped me from scrolling and maybe had me click on the link. Maybe, right? It was noise.
Yeah.
And then I saw some really unfortunate other things, like people trying to do reels weirdly, like dancing around with their book with like, text overlay, like buy it here. And I was like, I have no idea what's happening in this video.
Yeah.
Why are they dancing with the book? Does dancing have something to do with the book? Like they're not saying anything other than go buy my book. So yes, it's visual content, which I know right now is like better. Reels though, are reels the thing on like instead of me actually being engaged with what does this book do and who is this author and would I want to follow them and connect, I was too busy trying to dissect what was happening.
Mm-hmm. The purpose
in this promotional thing, right? Which it defeats the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So Jen, what would you suggest? Like, where do people begin, right? In like, I think that we can't even talk strategy. Like, where do you go? What do you post? What do you do until we deal with like what the hell's happening in your brain? Like, what is going on up here? Because that's like, I think obviously it's like the very first piece. You've got to like get yourself oriented towards what you're doing.
Well, I think we have to start with kind of like going back to our purpose. So going back to our January episode or the first chapter of the book and really just re-anchoring what the purpose is. So if you didn't do that work, this I think becomes a little bit harder because when you don't know what the purpose is, you don't have that anchor point, you don't have that North Star, and it gets a little bit more murky and easier to kind of fall off the tracks when you don't like, because our mindset, it controls everything. It controls everything that we do. And so if we want to move forward, make progress, invite people to whatever the thing is, and then something happens and all of a sudden we feel like dissuaded from doing it, or we're feeling like a little bit like uneasy about it, if we don't have that anchor point of our purpose to be like, oh yeah, that's right, this isn't about me. Because I think that's the reality of books and authorship, is that none of this is about us. The point of putting specifically for nonfiction books, right? Our goal is to create a transformation for the reader. That is ultimately the end goal. Therefore, it is not about us. We just happen to be the ones that have the wisdom to put on the pages for someone else to learn from. And so like we have to just like immediately switch it from that standpoint alone to stop thinking about this being all about me. And that's where I think just like switching that invitation Because if I'm coming to you saying like, Allie, you have to go buy my book. It's the most amazing thing I have ever written. It is my 8th. It's the best I've ever done. And like, that is all centered to me. It's centered in my ego. That is not a compelling invitation whatsoever. But if I say, hey, Allie, I know that you're struggling with, really trying to understand like where to figure out how you're going to make an impact, or you're really kind of struggling with your goal setting. I really think chapter 2 would be super valuable for that. Why don't you go to my website and download chapter 2, just to get a sense of what the book is about? That then gives you an invitation to go take an action. You take the action. And then if you choose to get the rest of the book after the fact, you choose to get the rest of the book. But it's not like a mandatory requirement in order for you to see a little bit of that transformation. So it's like really trying to like think differently about what that first invitation looks like. Because a lot of times the first invitation isn't directly buying the book. It is something else. Like you were saying about that reel, sometimes it would be much better suited to be like, yeah, go download chapter 1, go download this thing, go watch this video where I explain this particular thing. And then it gets people like, oh, okay, I think I can trust this person. I think I can trust the advice that this person's providing. And then it starts to kind of builds the trust in the reader, but it also builds our internal trust in ourselves to know that we can actually help somebody and we're not fighting with our ego about whether that's true or not.
I think what's great about the example that you provided in like, go look at this, it might help with this specific thing, is that you're making it bite-sized and manageable for the other person to see the value. Right. And it's interesting because, so I went to shout out to Twin Flame Studio. Earlier in the week, they had a really great panel that was basically on getting booked and paid once you have a book. Right. And so we were talking about developing a talk around a book and some of the common challenges that authors find in developing material to turn into a talk from their book. And the thing that came up was that authors write this whole book. They've got hundreds of pages worth of content. And so then what they try to do with the talk is they try to figure out how to jam all of the content from the book into one talk. And so then it's overwhelming. It feels a little bit unruly. The audience isn't really sure what they're supposed to take away because you've tried to like capture this overwhelming amount of stuff into one 60-minute presentation or whatever, right? And so one of the things that came up was like, like think about one piece that can offer one transformation and put your talk around that. You don't have to deliver your entire book as like the whole focus of the keynote. And I think if we think about that also from promotional standpoint, whether you're thinking about writing an email, whether you're thinking about writing a social media post, whether you're thinking about doing a reel or a short video, right? It's not necessarily that you need to try to figure out how to always promote every single aspect that your book covers, but how can you take one connection point, one piece of content that really matters, one idea, and get it to connect with your ideal reader, right? They might then want to know more when they can see like that one little piece versus trying to understand the whole breadth of what you address, right, in your book.
Well, because you have decades of experience, and that's how you wrote the book. Well, not even necessarily decades, but you got a lot of experience that you're putting into the book. Like you cannot fit that into a keynote. You cannot fit that into one presentation, 300 pages. It like you said, it overwhelms the person. And when someone's overwhelmed, they're not going to take any action. And that is the last thing that we're trying to get people to do is we want people to be able to take action. So how do we make it into bite-sized chunks?
Yeah. Bite-sized chunks for sure. So, so just to recap a few things here that we've covered so far. So you want to think about inviting someone in, right, to your world of expertise or your personal world if you're writing memoir, right? So you're thinking about invitation. You're thinking about bite-sized and digestible, not overwhelming them with every single thing that your book might cover, right? You're looking for one connection point. Third thing, Jen, I think that you were stating earlier, and we put this in just a separate kind of marketing principle that as business owners, we hear about all the time. You were mentioning like, if you approach it one way, it's all about me, but if you approach it another way, it's about them. And that goes back to that whole marketing principle of like showing your audience or your customer what's in it for them, right? They need to understand how this thing that you have, whether it's an offer or a book or a service, right? Product, whatever, how it benefits them. Right?
Yes.
And that's the same thing. That's the same frame, context, when it comes to figuring out how you're going to approach any type of content around your book.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that getting to that place of being able to kind of like reframe and take it out from like being us and onto somebody else is when we start to have to like really look at those limiting beliefs that we're carrying. And that is definitely something that's talked about in the chapters, like really reframing limiting beliefs. Because if we can look at a limiting belief that's like, you know, like you and I have both been doing this work for a while. But there are people who maybe they're just starting out doing it, or maybe they've been doing it for 20 years and they're like, I'm not an expert. Like, I'm not really the expert. I'm still trying to figure it out. When we're kind of like bringing that hesitancy to our writing, to our workshops, to our written word, to whatever the thing is, people are going to pick up on that hesitancy and it's going to erode that trust again. So it's almost like we have to like really think about like, what are all of the things that our mind is telling us that are probably inaccurate, or even if they have a little bit of accuracy, how can we reframe it to think, okay, how do I move this to more of a place of empowerment? Because then when we're showing up empowered, we're showing up differently and we can create that transformation for other people. Because like, if you see experts, like any type of experts, whether they're doing an Instagram video or they're on YouTube or wherever they may be, or even in like a live in-person workshop, if that person is like using like hesitating type of language as they're expressing whatever it is, the thing that they're talking about, trying to convince you that you also should be doing this thing, is that really going to create like conversions, if you will, for somebody to be like, oh, I do not think I trust Allie because she's hemming and hawing over this thing that she's claiming to be an expert in. So it's like we have to like do that inner work to be able to really feel like we can show up as an expert. Because when we can show up like an expert, we can create the invitation, versus when we're showing up hesitant, that's where I think the ego can start to pop in and things might come off more salesy, even when we're not trying to, just because we're not confident in what we're saying and how we're showing up. If that, I feel like that was a very convoluted way of saying it, but I'm hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is if you come across as being untrustworthy with yourself around your expertise, then you're going to appear unconfident, which is only going to lead to other people not being confident in you.
Succinct.
Wonderful. Here's where I think that being honest about maybe not being the one and only expert can be helpful. And that's only from a place of authenticity. Mm-hmm. So, and I know that word almost feels icky now because everybody's overused it. But what I mean is that I think there's a difference between saying, I am not the only expert in this field. There are lots of other people who have varying degrees or opinions on X, right? I actually think that can lend itself to likability, trust, credibility, because you're saying I'm not the one and only, right? There are lots of people in this body of work. Here's my take, right? I think that comes across as being authoritative and confident because you're making it known that there's a lot of people in this space. I think where it becomes a detriment is when you're kind of like hemming and hawing and like, well, I mean, this is what I think, but you know, don't misquote me because there could be other people, right? There's like an energy or a way of going about kind of getting to the same place that ends up with two very different kind of like feedback loops.
I think it comes down to like abundance versus scarcity mindsets. I think that's really like, if we want to drill down to like, I feel like, I don't want to say they're universal terms, but I feel like a lot of people kind of like know those two buckets of things. I think that definitely kind of feels that way. Because if I'm coming into a conversation of any kind and I am coming from a place of desperation, I'm coming in from scarcity, the words that I choose to use, the body language I choose to have, like those things will come through and I had a business coach forever ago that made some comment about somebody else reeking of desperation, of like, you never want to show up reeking of desperation. And it's like, yeah, of course, like the energy that you put, you're definitely not going to be winning the business when you are just coming across super desperate. But if we're coming from that abundance place where it's like, listen, like, I think you and I are really good examples of abundance because like we, like, even with our sister books, right? Like they are so similar, different perspectives, different framing, but it's basically the same content for the most part. It's just framed in a slightly different way. We could have looked at that and been like, she's the competition. I cannot possibly, like, like I have my book, she has her book. Like, there's no way. And really, we're like, these are sister books that are both beautiful, both have the same message. And we always are saying to people, like, just get whichever one you're feeling like, whichever one grabs your attention, or get both of them. Yeah. Because there's more people than you or I could ever possibly serve alone in this industry. And that is the case for every other industry, every other topic, every other book. There are more people than you alone as an author could ever serve. So why not be more in that collaborative space versus putting the energy out there that's just kind of like gonna like drag you down and then ultimately not create the transformation that you're looking to create for your reader? Because that is why we are all doing this work.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whoop, whoop. And just in case anybody doesn't know what the sister books are.
Yes.
This is actually Jenn's other book that came before the one that just published. So this is Publish Your Purpose. And Jenn and I were working on these two books like within a year of each other. Mm-hmm. And then found out that they were basically the same book.
Yep. And show the spines, because they're both like big, they're big girls, both of them. Yeah, look at those big gals.
But they're beautiful, and
they are
so informative. And if you need to really like put them next to your desk and refer to them all the time books, these are them. But I think going back to what you're saying though about like collaboration over competition, I think in your promotion there's plenty of space for one piece of content to not even be about like what you're saying, but how your book complements other books in the space. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't actually discredit you. Uh-uh. I think that shows up in a very different way that readers and audience value. Like, like there's these other books that exist and this author isn't afraid to actually share them. They don't see it as detracting from what they are also doing in this space, right? Because you have to be confident about what you're doing, and you have to have that abundance mindset as you're stating.
And it also lends credibility to, like, if you are kind of like the lower person or less known person in a space, and you're grabbing known books that people are kind of already familiar with, and you're like, hey, here's the top 10 books that are similar to mine. If someone's researching a problem to solve, they're not just going to buy one book and it's magically going to solve their problem. They're going to be purchasing book after book after book until that one book really captures whatever their pain point is. And so if you're really don't have as much visibility as the next author, wrapping that all together is a fantastic way to kind of lean into their audience, giving them exposure, and also aligning your brand next to someone else's brand that's more established.
Yeah. Connect with them. Have a conversation. Yeah. Like while you're developing the book, reach out. Maybe they'll endorse it. Mm-hmm. Right? Like consider adding in some of their research or knowledge base with appropriate credit and citation and referencing. Like they will be honored, likely, that you thought that they were another leading voice and you mentioned them in the book, right? Yeah. This is why one of the things that Jenn and I talk about, in manuscript development, like before you even draft, is having an understanding of the marketplace and understanding who else is out there in your space so that you know how your book is similar to theirs and how it's different, and then using that information as leverage, right? And not leverage in like a manipulative, hold it over their head kind of way, but in a way that serves you with integrity, right? There's a lot of opportunity for you in knowing what else exists out there without it needing to be slimy competition and all negativity.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you could still be writing a damn near identical book. Like, again, our books being good examples, like they're not identical. Like there's definitely nuance to it. However, it's still the same goal of helping authors with the same problems, the same pain points. But it's our different lived experiences that bring us to that point to be able to share the stories in a different way. So the topic, like the content, can be way more closely aligned than even our content is. And there's still a place for both of those books, because it's about how we show up as a person, how we're showing up in whatever services that we provide, and what our individual goal is for a particular author. Because there might be two authors side by side where your goal might be to sell as many books as possible, and my goal might be to bring as many new people into my business. Those are two different goals, which means there's going to be two different marketing strategies that are going to accomplish those different goals. So even when, you have 10 books that are the same, like especially leadership books. We publish a lot of leadership books. There's a lot of leadership books that have overlapping topics. Like a lot of them have overlapping topics, and it doesn't detract, it doesn't take away from what someone's unique perspective and lived experience is.
Okay, but only if you market it well. All right. So listen to these last few comments. We've talked about basically what we've talked about is saturation of the marketplace, right? That your idea is probably not an original idea. Unlikely that it is, because of the overwhelming amount of books that are published every single day, because of how many different models that we have, right? So if you have a book in a marketplace with a bunch of other books that have overlapping topics, you putting out a promotional post that just has the title and the description does not actually make it easy for your audience to say yes to your book, because you haven't differentiated it from all of the other titles and descriptions that might look the same to the reader.
Yeah.
Right?
Because titles and descriptions, like a book description, is meant to be on a sales page of whether it's an Amazon, a Barnes & Noble, or your own website. It is meant to be the place that someone lands after they have seen your book somewhere else. They've seen the post that's like, ooh, that's really interesting. Allie's talking about her book and how it's going to help me figure out what publishing path I should choose. Amazing, great. Then they go to whatever sales page of choice. Then they can read the description that is going to validate for them what their original inkling was, original thought that they had when they saw the post. If you are just dropping that in, it's like reading, I don't even know. It's like reading a flyer for something that you're not even interested in. It's like reading like a menu where you're like, oh, wait, is this something I should be interested in? And it's not to say that the description's written bad, wrong, or anything. It's just that's not the context in which a description should be used. Like at least have a little bit beforehand.
That's what you need. Context.
It's always context.
Right? Context.
Always.
You know? And since we're one of the places that we're streaming to is LinkedIn, right? Like you want your LinkedIn post, for example, to have context before people even know that you're pulling maybe something from your book.
Yeah, you can still use the description. Just add a sentence or two at the top to at least frame why it is that you're pasting your book description on LinkedIn in the first place.
Yeah. Or don't do that. Right?
That's also possible.
and approach it more, again, thinking about that connection point to your audience. What's a question perhaps that your book answers? What's a problem perhaps that your book solves? And I'm not saying the one and only, the main problem, right? Because again, that's feeding the entire content into one thing, which is really hard with 3,000 characters in a LinkedIn post, right? But like one aspect that you can address, and then maybe subtly at the very end, right? And for more great tips and tricks to help the indie author write and publish the right way, you can check out my book at blah, right? Buried all the way at the end. But you've already given value in the post. You've already invited people into your expertise because you've provided something of value, some sort of context that they might be interested in, something that they can noodle on, right? Without it just being direct to like calling all readers. I've just published. Buy
my book now.
Right?
Let me be a bestseller. Buy it now.
I think like during launch day, right? Like a quick, like, it's finally here. This is the day I've published this book, right? Like, I think that there can be room for those types of kind of direct, like, put it out there kind of posts. But I think most of the time, we need a little extra. We've got people here live. I'm so excited to see you all. I don't think I gave a shout out to Lisa, who's here. So hello, thanks for being here. Now, because I know all three of these people that are tuning in from LinkedIn, I know that they all have very different books. I'd love to know from them if they've got questions about promoting their book, mindset with promoting their book. Or if they have a sense of how they would want to invite the reader in to their book. Now, I know Christy's at least has one book published. She's got a second on the way. Same thing with Erica. Lisa, I think you're still working on your memoir. I'm not sure if you might have a prior book before that. So if you've got things that you want us to address, now is the time, my friends, because one of the fabulous parts of season 3 is live on air coaching with those who show up. And we're happy to address questions as they arise. So please plug into us here and now, and we'll see what we can do. While we're waiting to see what drops into the comments, one of the things that I was thinking about too, like as we're talking about context and all these other things, there are some very simple ways for promoting without a lot of effort. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of times when it comes to mindset, right? If it's a lack of confidence, for example, the only way to build confidence is to do something that's a little bit of a stretch outside your comfort zone, right? And to build confidence through actually taking action that builds your confidence, mm-hmm. right? Just like you only become a stronger writer by writing. Mm-hmm. You're only going to develop confidence by doing things and hopefully believing in yourself enough to see them through, mm-hmm. and building confidence that way, mm-hmm. right? So if it feels like too much of a stretch to start off with, like coming up with posts and emails and reels and whatever, here are some simple things. Change your headlines on all your social media profiles to include that you are now an author.
Real simple.
Super simple, right? Mm-hmm. If you have professional bios, make sure you update them, mm-hmm. with author and title of your book. If you have an email signature, add author and the title of your book to your email signature. Maybe even include a picture cover image of your book, right? If you've got a LinkedIn profile, you can put author under your experience and include details about your book there. Mm-hmm. You can also put your book in your featured media section of your LinkedIn profile, right? These are all simple things that don't require much time, much energy, much effort. But it gets you started in the habit of remembering and calling out the fact that you are now a published author.
That is all we're trying to do here. And I just used this example talking to somebody yesterday, and I think I use it in the book somewhere, what chapter, TBD, not even sure where I put it. But if we remember, I just remember being like a kid watching shows in like the mid 90s, we'll say. And there would be like the person like with a trench coat in like New York City, for example, where they open it into all the watches, like, all of the things that someone does.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the person with all the watches in the coat where you show up and you're like, oh, I work with author, I publish books. I have an institute where I, help people self-publish books. I'm also on the board of this organization. I founded this organization. I did this. I used to be that. Like, that's a lot of stuff happening in one. But if I can lead with like, hey, I'm the author of 8 books, and which is, a little bit of a high number to share, but, and I can, if I'm leading with the one that's most relevant to the conversation I'm having, being like, hey, I'm an award-winning author. I'm the author of Promote Your Purpose. It came out on February 17th. I think, it can help based on what we're talking about. It can help you in this way, this way, and this way. Then they can go through that whole cycle that we talked about. I can invite them to go watch a video. Maybe they're watching this. They can go read the book, etc. Then they can see all of those other details about who I am and how I show up. They can see all of the watches, but the watches are contained inside the book itself versus just showing up into a conversation and being like, oh yeah, I started this business, 10 years ago without knowing that I'm an author. Because the benefit and the beauty of a book is that it can contain all of your lived experiences. There still needs to be parameters around that, this whole other conversation, but like it can include your lived experience. So people then can look at you and be like, oh, this is someone who has founded a couple of different organizations or has been volunteering for these types of things, because you can organically weave it into the content of your book versus having like, oh, here's this thing. And then you leave the person you're talking to or the reader being like, wait a minute, what does she actually do? Like, she's saying it's this is like, is that now or is that from the past? Like, you don't want to be rattling off a resume for people. But if you say like, I'm an author and your book contains the information from the resume, you're kind of like 2 birds, 1 stone, Yeah.
All right, let's dig in a little bit further. So let's say I want to talk long-term mindset for a couple of minutes.
Okay, let's do it.
Because I think first-time authors, right, they fear the promotion. It's a little clunky at first, maybe. They try to avoid it, right? Maybe eventually they find their footing. A lot of authors tend to really like push themselves during those first couple of weeks of launch, right after publication, right? And then they go quiet, right? Now we know that books tend to do the best during those first couple of months after publication, probably because of the very thing that I just said. Everybody's stepping on the gas at that point. But the other type of mindset that one needs to have in this particular industry, I mean, maybe all industries, but like I can only speak to this one, is a marathon mindset. So growth mindset is one, abundance mindset, right, are kind of similar. Those are good to have in terms of like putting yourself out there to do the thing, remaining open, remaining curious, remaining confident, right? Being collaborative, right, with others, not always seeing everything as a competition. Those are all well and good to actually getting yourself going and being the marketer and promoter of your book. But the other thing that you're going to need is a marathon mindset, meaning that this is not a one and done. This is not a sprint. That even though your book might perform the best in those first couple of months around publication, does not mean that you can set it and forget it. Right? Because there's too many other books that are coming out. There's too many other ideas and voices that are coming out. If you stop saying that you have a book or stop making it relevant to the people around you who are following you, then your book will become irrelevant, right? It will become invisible. People will not know that it exists. So you have to continue to market and promote, right? And this is often why authors, first-time authors who don't know anything yet, or who haven't done the reading or haven't met other authors or whatever, right? They get so excited about finishing the manuscript and the book being published, and they think that's the end. And then somebody like me who kind of shoots from the hip and says it straight is like, sorry, but this is actually just the beginning, right? You know, you're not going to just stop marketing or promoting your book if you want your book to do well and last forever.
Yes. Right? And marketing doesn't have to look the way that people tell you it looks. And I think that's so much of what I talk about in this book that we'll get to in future months is, you know, for me, I give my books away for free all the time, like all the time, because I know that the value that I'm adding is not from making $5 in royalties on a book. So from my marketing standpoint, like if I have a conversation with someone and I know that the publisher purpose book would be a value add to them in the moment, I will send them the ebook, I will send them the PDF of the workbook, and I'll be like, I really think if you focused on chapter 5, that's going to help you kind of get through that roadblock that we were talking about. That's still marketing, right? Like it doesn't have to be, I'm spending money for radio ads, I'm spending money on Facebook ads. I'm like, it doesn't have to be these things. So if you can find a way to really look at your book as a vehicle for change and impact and transformation for your reader, you might find that giving your book away for free in whatever settings, like even right now, if someone was like, you know what, money is a barrier for me, would you like send me an email? I will happily give you the ebook. Like it's as simple as that. Like that's not my motivation, but there are authors where making every penny back on the sale of their books, they would never give their book away for free. And that's okay too. It's just a different strategy. So we have to think about what marketing strategies align with what goals we have. So that way we can be constantly showing up and constantly talking about our books and conversations. Like obviously my books are right behind me. Your book is behind you. Like, so it's that kind of the subtlety of that, even that alone is part of marketing. It doesn't always have to be this big, expensive, fancy endeavor that is time consuming and soul crushing. Sometimes it's just like, hey, I met this really cool person and I'm going to follow up via email and say, hey, I actually have this free book promotion that I'm doing in a couple of weeks. Make sure you check out the book on this day. Right? Like because then you can always go back to those same people and say like, hey, could you, I gave you a copy of the book at whatever point in time. Would you be willing to leave a review for me? So there's always something you can kind of like follow up and go back with. Or, hey, I shared did you read chapter 5? Did you find value in that? And, do you have any other questions? Is there like a way that we, do you want to have another conversation, which could then lead to someone working with you? So like, it's all about, which goes back to what you and I do outside of the promotional work is the construction of the book itself and making sure that the book itself leads to those opportunities for us when we do decide to possibly give it away for free or whatever ways in which we might be marketing it.
So, and this goes back to mindset, right? Like it goes back to mindset because you need to understand what you value, what you believe in, what feels good to you, in the ways that you go about marketing, right? If you start doing all of the things because you see somebody else doing all of the things, then you need to stop and ask yourself, why?
Yeah.
Why am I doing all those things? Is it because I feel like I should? Or is it because I actually believe that these are going to be helpful strategies? Or is it because I don't know yet what works and what doesn't? So I have to try a whole bunch of things on. And because I have a growth mindset, I'm going to experiment, right? There's different energy around each one of those ideas. Okay. So, you know, how you're thinking about this, how you're believing about this is all a part of this equation. And I think like the marathon mindset sometimes freaks people out. Like, oh my God, it's forever. Like I got to market it forever. But the reframe here, which is a part of mindset, is that, oh my gosh, I don't have to rush or hurry because I have forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what Christy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Christy's in here saying marketing takes time. My book will be out there forever. So I just keep at it. Yes. Like Dory in Finding Nemo, just keep swimming. Right. Keep repeating that final destination and just swim a little bit further every time. But like, you don't have to do all of the things today. You don't have to get all of the things right tomorrow because you have a very long runway to experiment, to practice, to get better, to learn new skills, to think differently. And the other beautiful thing within that long-term marathon mindset is that the way that you think about your book in general is going to evolve, which will lead to other possibilities and other ideas of how you go about marketing and promoting, because you are not going to be somebody who remains stagnant, right?
Yeah.
We are always changing and we are always evolving, right? At least I hope we are. I mean, I guess if some of us aren't, then yikes. But, you know, so you have an advantage. Like you actually, this long runway that you have is actually an advantage and an opportunity.
Yeah, because marathons can be in waves, right? Like you don't have to think of a marathon as the one and only end all be all. I have to deal with this for the rest of my life. Like I am actually a former physical marathon runner. So like the training for a marathon is a little bit insufferable, if I'm being honest. And you can decide how long you want it to take you. It depends on like what your fitness level is at the start. So it's the same thing like your mindset at the start from a book standpoint, right? So if I say, all right, I want to actually take 12 months to train for this marathon and do a marathon on March 12th of 2027. I start today. That is one race, one end goal. All of that training, all of the stuff that you're doing is leading to that one goal. Then that happens and you can take a step back and say, okay, do I want to do this again? Or do I want to do it a little bit differently? And if so, what might that look like? Maybe I don't want to ever run a full marathon again. I'm going to do a half marathon. Okay, so now you have a 6-month sprint that maybe you're looking for. Or maybe you're going to do a 3-month, I shouldn't even say sprint, like a 6-month marathon, 12-month. Or maybe you're like, I freaking love that. Everything I did in this last 12 months was awesome. I found what works. I found what didn't work. I'm going to just restart the cycle all over again and have the same plan in place for the next 12 months. And it doesn't mean that you have to be working nonstop, incessantly, and crazily. Because if you look at like an actual marathon training plan, there's 2 like short days and then there's like a long day of running. It's the same idea. It might be 2 short days of marketing activities. And maybe you have 1 long day where you're like, all right, I'm going to put in like 4 or 5 hours and just really focus on this. But a lot of people can't do that just in a given week. So it might be like, okay, I have 1 day a month that I can block off and just work on all of my marketing for all of the month. And I can just do it. And other people are like, you know what? I just want to like look at it, touch it, do something every day. And it's really going to come down to how you work best. Because I am more of I would rather just kind of like hunker down and like get a whole bunch of stuff done and then like send it off for a while. And you might be someone who's like, I just want to like chip away at it daily. And neither of those is right or wrong. It is just our personal preferences. So it's finding what your preferences are and going through that full marathon. You might say, okay, I thought my preferences were this. I realize that is not the case. And I need to adjust this for the next marathon, you know? And so like, we want to like, yes, it's forever, but also we can put parameters around how we get to forever, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The other thing too, that I was thinking about as you were talking about kind of choosing a path that makes sense for you and like, getting trained for marathon or whatever. I think what we have to be really realistic about with ourselves, whatever our approach is to training for the marathon, right? We're going to have off days.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the easiest things to tweak is your mindset. Well, maybe not easiest, but what I mean is that if you can notice that your mindset is shifted, perhaps into negativity or scarcity or whatever, like nothing is stopping you from bouncing back into growth mindset or abundance mindset, right? There are definitely days where my attitude, my perspective is like, oh my God, this is so daunting. It's never going to get done, right? And then the next day I have to take a deep breath and I have to shake it off and I have to go, look, that negative bullshit's not going to help me. Like, how can I look at this differently?
Yeah.
Right? That's where reframing comes in. That's where getting back on the saddle comes in. That's where deciding that today's going to be different comes in, and not dwelling on how you did it before and what mistakes you made and why it was wrong and why it didn't work. And okay, great. Like, yeah, honor some of that. Honor that it felt icky, or honor that it didn't work, or honor that you're frustrated. I'm not saying like just look over and keep moving, but don't let yesterday's mindset necessarily dictate today's progress.
Yes. Ooh, that's a quotable. I like it.
We should put that on a shirt.
We should.
So folks, the game is what you make it, right? And this is kind of a game in a way, right? But it's one with yourself. It's not like, can I sell more copies than Jenn?
Yeah.
It's can I do better for myself today than I did yesterday?
Yeah.
Can I get this to work for me differently than how I was doing it before? Right? And just like marathon running, right? Like, yeah, there might be a bunch of people around you who are also running the same race, but I bet a lot of marathon runners are not just thinking about beating other people. They're thinking about beating their best time.
Most people do not care about beating other people.
Right?
Yeah. It's the same thing with authorship.
So, you need to be in the race for yourself, and you need to understand that everybody else around you is a different runner, right?
And knowing why you're running in the first place.
Yeah, they're trained differently. Their purpose for doing it is different, right? How they're getting to that finish line, maybe their strategy around when they take their breaks, when they sip their water, what kinds of shoes they've chosen, like whatever it is, right? Like you cannot compare yourself to others because it's not apples to apples.
No.
There's way too many factors. Even if it looks, right? The digital landscape will make it look like we're comparing two same things, right? But that's all a facade because you can only see so much in the digital landscape. You don't know what's happening behind the scenes in that person's world, in that person's house, right? Behind that computer screen. So, mindset, folks, mindset. If you can control your mind, you're going to have better confidence and control over your momentum.
I think you are on a roll for shirts.
I'm on a roll for shirts.
We do want to do merchandise. So, in addition to stripes and lines and pages over here, maybe we need to have some Allie shirts that we're selling.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like close-ups of the cats with collars that have the sayings.
Oh, how cute would that be?
Yeah. Or some of those like rubber bands.
Yes.
Elastic, whatever, with like sayings on them. If anybody likes any of the things that we've been throwing down and you want to see it on some merch, drop it in the comments. We're taking input, feedback. Okay. So we're at nearly the top of the hour.
We are.
So we have to wrap up here. So where we are going next for April, we're going to be heading into chapter 4. Okay. And we're going to be focusing on motivation and accountability.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
These are such huge pieces. Accountability to me is like a structural component that is the difference between actually getting it done and not. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But hopefully if you got the right mindset, accountability is not going to be as much of a problem. We see
how it's all building?
We hope.
There is a build happening. And then I was going to say, after the accountability, that's when we start to get into what's our ecosystem look like? Who are our target readers? how are we selling? And then we're getting into like really getting into the marketing side. So I feel like April will be the last kind of piece that's a little more inner work, if you will. The rest is going to start to actually show up and manifest in kind of like that outer work. But once we have this foundation of like these really core principles and tenets, it's really going to be what sets you so much further ahead than someone else who's also on the same journey, because then you have these kind of like anchor points to be like, okay, that's right. Allie said that I could expect that this is going to happen. And now I have a plan for, okay, it happened. Now I have a plan for what that looks like.
Yeah, love it. And to accompany chapter 4 content, okay, if you've got the book and you want to read chapter 4 for next time, great. If you don't, and you go get the workbook, then you're still in the same place in the workbook, chapter 4, stay motivated with support, structure, and accountability. There's some great exercises in here to help you build out those accountability structures.
Yeah,
right?
This is one of my favorite things to talk about, to be honest, simply because it is not complicated and it only takes a little bit of time to kind of think through some of these things, and they save so much time and stress down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. And accountability is actually, so what's going to be interesting about next month's topic is accountability is also something that comes up a ton with authors in developing their manuscript, even before the book publishes or they're even thinking about promotion and marketing. Yeah. So I think next month is going to be a little bit more tangible than this month. This mindset's a hard one to talk about because it can be a very personal thing and it's kind of more conceptual and abstract and heady than it is anything else. So stick it out with us for another episode next month. Make sure you go to unscriptedforauthors.com so that you know when the next episodes are happening. You can download that free workbook. When are we?
April 9th.
April 9th?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, April 9th. That's when we're back, folks.
10 a.m. Eastern.
All right, before we close out, Jen, shameless promotion. What you got?
I'm going to say, in regards to the conversation that we've been having today, I have a card deck that goes with this book that is available on my website. It's also currently available on Amazon. I might take it down, so go to our website. It is action prompts to sell the book, to market your book, to promote your book, to do all the things with your book. And it's literally just picking up one card a day, right? I picked up assess, ask 3 colleagues to describe you in 3 words and look for patterns. You can do that. If that's just your one thing you got to do today, it's little bite-sized chunks, because it helps us from a mindset standpoint to be like, all right, I just need to take one action a day. What's the action? Pull it from the card deck and find out.
Loved it. Loved it. Okay. So Jen, will you update the description or post in the comments the link to the card deck?
I will. Yes. Okay. I went rogue off of our plans as usual.
Well, I don't think that matters. It's unscripted for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What am I talking about then? I don't know.
Where'd that voice come from?
Where did that voice come from? Yeah, I think, folks, I'm just wanting to have conversations with those of you who are ready to make some really concerted effort on your manuscripts, especially those with memoirs. Okay. So I've got a free 30-minute story stroll. It's just a one-to-one conversation where I get to know you and your book and your challenges, and we can chat for a few minutes. Hopefully, you're looking for an ideal partner to get you going and get that manuscript fully developed. But I would just want to start with a conversation. So if you're interested in speaking with me in that one-to-one instance, then I encourage you to book a 30-minute story stroll. If you want to get started, just DM me on LinkedIn to begin that conversation. I can send you the link or explain more about what we do in that conversation. But yeah, I just want to strike up a chit chat. That's what I want to do.
You are quite good at the chit chatting.
Chit chat
might be a superpower.
Chit chatting. Yep. Yep. All right. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. We hope to see you back again next month. And if you catch the rest of this, like maybe you dipped out halfway through and you come back and watch the rest, we would love to hear anything you've got in the comments in terms of key takeaways or key questions. And for those of you who couldn't join us live but catch the replay, same thing. We would love to hear from you and answer anything that we can about managing your mind when it comes to promoting your book.
Well said. Thank you, Allie.
You're
welcome.
We'll
see you in April.
See you, everyone.